Good evening. Welcome to the midweek edition of the State of Business on Art Television. I'm Nishani Piguera. As usual, a look at the headlines first. Living Heritage event series inaugurated under the patronage of Prime Minister. And minimum qualifications for medical education to be gazetted. In tonight's top story, Living Heritage, a two-day event organized by the European Union together with the embassies of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Federal Republic of Germany and the British Council, began in Colombo this morning. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe delivered the opening remarks during the inauguration ceremony.
The two-day series is being held with the aim of addressing the challenge of imagining and building the city of tomorrow while valuing and readapting the past. International renowned experts from Europe and neighboring countries will share their experiences of how best to promote heritage conservation, involve authorities, local businesses and communities in city planning, and how to maximize the value of Colombo's many traditions to attract tourists and investments. The centerpiece seminar would be accompanied by supporting interactive events, showcasing Sri Lankan heritage and participatory workshops aimed at mobilizing engagements.
Dutch house is really from the early 18th century. The farm which supplied food to the Dutch fort. We have some very, very old buildings. The Nugola Walauwa, all of them are getting converted. Older hotels, certainly GOH, Golf Ace, Queen's Hotel. So how do we preserve them? How do we build them up? We may not have all of them in one. We are fortunate that the Galle Fort has the Dutch buildings, and here in commercial, in the fort, this area, we have got the British buildings. So preserving them and the individual ones is the task that we have, and we put a group of our officials to come up with a final report. So what you do will help us. It will help us to identify and to see how it should be preserved. But there are many more old buildings that have to be preserved. Now how do we do it? Are any groups willing to undertake it? I find here there are some students from the architecture faculty of the Moroto. If you all are willing, we will fund it so you can make a list of all the heritage buildings. It's what about the plantations, the buildings up there in the hill country. We are about to give out some of the plantation buildings in houses in Badulla district to be used for tourism. So we are gradually opening up. We need a plan of how we are going to preserve this, because I think Colombo has some unique architecture. Colombo together with Calcutta is where the modern commercialism was introduced to Asia.
Addressing the media during the ceremony, architect Abanaren Lamba and architect Deben Moza briefed about managing historic city centres.
One by one, we managed to get the signboards off and regulate them across the street. And finally, through a public interest litigation, all the billboards too went. And we cleaned up. It's really the urban clutter, the visual clutter, which cost the government nothing. And you could actually see that there were buildings where they had no light and ventilation for 50 years. And then we got every shopkeeper to pay for the street furniture outside his shop. So if it was a small luggage shop or a bank, they paid for the street furniture, the cobblestone outside their building. And that created a sense of ownership, because if you have paid for the cast iron railing, you don't allow someone to spit on it. And I think that model worked, and it's worked for over 12 years.
The challenge is so far, in India, we never conserved concrete buildings. So we had to do a lot of research and approach the organizations who can help us in conserving concrete buildings. So we got Getty involved in this, who are advising us in conserving the heritage or the concrete structures. So these are the issues we face now. You see the tapestry which was put there to accommodate the air conditioning. They were cut and the air conditioning grills were put. The furniture that was required, because with time you had the occupancy increase, so they had to accommodate everything. For 60 years, all these structures have been neglected. So each and every possible kind of encroachment has happened in these structures.
And now let's take a look at a few cabinet decisions that was approved this week. The Cabinet has decided to appoint a Cabinet Committee chaired by Special Assignments Minister Dr. Sarath Amunugama and a committee of officials to assist the existing Cabinet Committee for negotiating with the railway trade unions and make recommendations to solve their issues. The Cabinet of Ministers prescribed minimum qualifications for medical education. Accordingly, 2 credit passes and 1 simple pass in GCE A-level examination in one sitting for subjects chemistry, physics and biology were approved to be gazetted as minimum qualification. Signing of MOUs among member countries of the Indian Ocean Rim Association on promotion of small and medium-scale enterprises was approved by the Cabinet. The Cabinet of Ministers also approved the decision to prepare appropriate programs to promote Sri Lanka's tea in the People's Republic of China and to enter into an agreement for holding tea auctions in China. Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe's proposal to transfer a land owned by the Sri Lanka Cement Corporation to Sri Lanka Ports Authority for the development of the Kankasanture harbour was also approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. In more news tonight, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers convened a media briefing in Colombo recently to introduce the internationalized domain name program and launch the Sinhala Generation Panel. The launch signifies a future where the local community contributes towards developing a secure and stable access to the Internet in Sinhala. Moreover, during the press briefing, local experts in the field expressed views regarding the evolution of the Internet's domain name system and its potential implication for Sri Lanka. The discussion further explored how the region can increase Internet penetration and leverage the Internet more innovatively. Given the Internet's growing importance in today's society and economy, the discussion was a critical opportunity to address pressing issues to Internet growth in the region. The ICANN community is an open global group of diverse stakeholders with a wide mix of governments, civil society advocates, individual Internet users, business and technical experts. ICANN is currently overseeing one of the biggest changes ever in the history of the Internet with its new generic top-level domain program. This is driving the largest expansion of the DNS, promoting choice, competition and innovation for the benefit of consumers and businesses. ICANN is also enhancing the usability of the Internet through the introduction of internationalized domain names. These internationalized domain names will enable the global community to use a domain name and access content in their native language or script. Sri Lanka currently has an Internet penetration rate of approximately 32%, which is below the average penetration of 46.7% in Asia. Stay tuned to the State of Business for more news after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching the State of Business. Deputy Minister of Policy Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Harsha De Silva, highlighted the important contributions made by the European Union in order to facilitate the rural community and uplift the corporate sector in Sri Lanka. Dr. De Silva expressed these views during a photography exhibition themed Celebrating Partnership, organized by the Government of Sri Lanka and the European Union in Colombo recently.
The photographs shown during the exhibition depicted districts of the north and east, including Anuradhapura and Puttalam. The exhibition was attended by a large number of individuals representing the EU, UN, IFC, the Government of Sri Lanka, and various district-level government institutions and other key stakeholders.
Let me, on behalf of the Government of Sri Lanka, appreciate the support of the European Union and these UN agencies. And I heard something like 60 million euros in their efforts in uplifting the poor and the vulnerable in those particularly post-conflict regions of this nation. I think we are now beyond humanitarian assistance and development assistance. I believe now our partnership must be taken to the next stage, and that is of trade and investment. And it is in that context that I'm happy to note the ITC in Geneva and the EU just recently published a comprehensive guide on how to obtain duty-free access to all 28 European Union nations for 6,600 products. And I just read up, it costs only 10,000 rupees one-time registration, and that helps our exporters to understand specifically what needs to be done, what license needs to be obtained, what kind of rules of origin requirements need to be met, so that our local farmers can supply to supermarkets in Europe.
Speaking further, Deputy Minister of Policy Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Harsha De Silva, stated the importance of supporting the small and medium enterprises within the country.
As politicians, we go, we make presentations, we speak with diplomats, we fight resolutions in various, or in this particular case, the European Parliament, and we say to the people here is GSP Plus. But that's all the government can do. It can get these concessions, it can provide the opportunity for people, but it is our business people, our investors, our small and medium entrepreneurs that must take this baton and run. Extremely pleased to hear that fisheries exports to the European Union had increased by something like 160% in the last so many months after the ban on export of fish to Europe was lifted. I was speaking to many apparel exporter the other day, and they were all very hopeful. They were telling their books were getting filled up and that they were looking forward to the next season so that they can export much more than they exported last time to the EU. Now in that context, like I said earlier, the catalyst must now sort of appear, because the link between exporting to EU, getting those concessions, and the farmer or the small and medium producer, harvesting pickles or maybe stitching t-shirts or what have you, that link must happen. And that is, I think, where I would seek assistance and also entrepreneurs to take advantage of the possibility in creating small-time consultancies, business services, go to the small and medium enterprises, show them how they can leverage what is available.
Stocks ended in the red today. Let's find out more details after the break. Welcome back to the show. Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all share price index dropped 7.59 points to close at 6,352.77, and the S&P SL20 dropped 22.19 points to close at 3,687.8. Turnover was 682.8 billion rupees, and 21.3 million shares were traded. Up next are the day's forex rates. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Do join us again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening.